Today we're going to discuss CELPIP reading and listening. I'm going to tell you 3 strategies on each section which are going to improve you drastically. These are things which people think can be ignored because a lot of us think we can look at keywords in reading, we can look at keywords in our notes when we're taking notes for listening, and that's going to be enough. It's not really that way. You have to understand the meaning of what is being said while listening and what is written when you're reading. Because a lot of questions in CELPIP are based on interpretation. What does this person feel? What is your opinion about this option, this debate? A lot of these things need not guesswork or keyword or quick shortcuts. They need actual reading and understanding. So how do we sharpen that skill? Again, let me clarify what I'm telling you about. Let's start with the reading. So what I'm talking about is when people, for example, in IELTS especially, they look at the keyword in the question, go in the passage, find that, and match the answer. Or find a similar keyword. For example, the question says, it's a good weather, and the passage says it's pleasant outside. So it's the same thing as weather, but it's a different wording and they can match it. But what I'm saying is not those conditions. I'm talking about conditions where you actually have to read and understand the whole thing. Okay, so when you really have to look at sentences, observe and analyze and compare them with multiple choice questions, one thing I highly recommend for homework practice is go to a website like guardian.com. So I'm going to put this picture up on the screen. This is me being on Guardian.com. This is an article about some cosmetic problem, and it's just a random article I opened up. Okay, you can open up articles that you like to read. What I'm going to tell you here is it's very important to read 2 sentences, then pause and explain to yourself what you have read. Let me tell you what I mean. Let's start this paragraph. So it's talking about a girl, Malik, I think, or a boy, I think. Well, we'll see. Whatever. Let's say. Though she had received several concerned DMs from followers experiencing similar hair damage, it wasn't until she joined a Facebook group later that summer that she admitted the culprit could be her beloved hair products. The group Hair Damage and Hair Loss from whatever, You Are Crazy, You Are Alone, started by Orlando-based hairstylist Stephanie Mero, had 3,000 members at the time who all experienced similar damage they attributed to Deva Curl. Okay, 2 sentences, right? Now what you got to do is stop and explain to yourself in your own words what you just read. So if I explain this to myself, and you can pause and try it before I do it, I'm going to go ahead now. And what this girl is saying is basically her Facebook followers were complaining, but she realized it later herself when she saw her own hair products. And then there's this girl in this company, Stephanie Mero, and she had some members who had similar problems. You see, I'm not using the words from there. I'm explaining the words myself. And what just happened is now I have a much better understanding of what was said. Trust me, do this, really do this. Explain it to yourself. You'll see how much more clear it's going to become. You know how I learned the strategy? I learned the strategy when I became a teacher myself. So students, I had to explain it to them, what was written, and that's what I did. I read it and explained it in my own words, and I was so shocked that I was able to understand these things so much better myself. So a lot of people say in all industries, if you want to be a good teacher, if you want to be a good student, try to be a good teacher. Try to look at it from the teacher's eyes. That's what I'm trying to teach you here. 2 sentences at a time, read it, explain it to yourself. And again, I recommended something like theguardian.com because it's especially very difficult, as you can see. Vocab also is very difficult, so it'll help you improve even more. There are also sometimes long and short sentences, so it's a good combination. Okay, so as you do this, as you get better, the second thing you want to try to improve your reading is to then upgrade yourself to reading one entire paragraph. Okay, I like the paragraph sizes on Guardian.com, like a bunch of 5 to 6 sentences. Read the whole paragraph and explain it to yourself then. Imagine in the exam, if you're reading 2 sentences and explain, 2 sentences and explain, great strategy, but it's going to take you a lot of time. You have a limit there. What if you can read a whole paragraph, explain it to yourself? By that, I mean, when you're explaining it to yourself, you're basically understanding the paragraph way better. So eventually, once your speed gets better, your understanding and vocabulary get better, you want to be able to upgrade that to from 2 to 3 sentences to 4 sentences, eventually the whole paragraph. So what you want to do is exactly what I did. Read the whole thing, not the sentences, the whole paragraph, explain it to yourself in your own words. Okay? What happens is when you do these questions later, multiple choice questions, you will be a master in picking the right answer because you have understood the whole thing. If anything is paraphrased, that's okay. You paraphrased it yourself when you were explaining, so you know exactly what was said. This is what upgrades your understanding a lot. When we're doing this also, you're gonna notice your speed increases, okay? And that brings me to my third point. When your speed increases, sometimes you won't even have to read the whole thing to get the idea. For example, I believe my speed is pretty good. I would say really good, actually. So if I had to skim through and find an idea in the paragraph, this is what I'm gonna do. Let me put up this picture again. So, all right, so though I'm gonna skim it like this. Though she had some followers, had hair damage, she had a Facebook group, and there were some hair products. Okay, cool. Then there's this group, not gonna read the name, and this lady had 3,000 members who also experienced something similar. Cool. Malik reads the post, cried in recognition and horror. It is still, so she is very horrified, and she was in denial. Okay. She told The Guardian she felt long-term relationship, it's hard to fathom, why would you harm me, and complete opposite of that. So what I understood from my skimming through is this lady was very hurt, and of course we read the first two sentences where in the Facebook group she realized what happened, but later we found out that she was very hurt, she didn't expect it, it was very harmful, and she was all broken up about it, right? So this is skimming through. Should you do this when you start the reading? No, not really. But when you look at the question, you go up in the passage, you want to find out which paragraph contains the relevant information so you can target that paragraph. For that, it is important. Okay, so eventually, once your comprehension gets better, this is your third step, finding a way to skim through real quick and get all the ideas. So this way you can match it with the question and just read that relevant part instead of reading the whole thing every time you look at a question. So those are our 3 steps for reading. When we come to listening, it's something similar. It's in stages. Okay, so the first stage of listening is, and again, I would recommend going on YouTube and watching interviews. Okay, I'll tell you why. Interviews with celebrities. These interviews are real life scenarios. CELPIP listening is very realistic. It's not like a news outlet or like an encyclopedia. It is based on conversation, and you're trying to ascertain answers based on how 2 people are communicating, or sometimes 3, right? So they ask, how did this person feel? How did this person react to the other person? So you want to see the expressions, the emphasis, the reactions, and phrases that people use to communicate. And that is why if you listen to interviews with celebrities, successful people, there's a communication going on. And you can get the idea from that conversation. You can develop your listening skills and develop your understanding of people's emotions, reactions, and how they feel, how they react by watching those interviews. So watch those interviews on YouTube. Do something similar. Listen to 2 sentences said by the interviewee or interviewer. Pause. Explain it to yourself. Same way we did it in reading. Okay, 2 sentences, pause and explain. 2 sentences, pause and explain. It will help you develop your understanding by a whole lot. The second step would be to listen to a little bit more complex info. If you have interviews that you're listening to with Kardashians, they're not going to have too many difficulties. But if you have an interview that you're listening to by Elon Musk, by a scientist, where you would have terms that are unfamiliar to you, that are a little complex, maybe a medical interview, maybe a documentary, try to upgrade your level to that. Now you listen to something more complex and see with 2 or maybe more, 3 or 4 sentences, when you pause and you explain it to yourself, can you remember everything? Can you explain all of the difficult terminologies and things being said to yourself? This is going to be your next level to find more advanced content. And the third thing is going to be, of course, in CELPIP, you want to write. So now you want to mix all these techniques up with writing. One thing you're doing is steps 1 and 2, pausing the video and explaining to yourself what you just heard. In the third step, when you get to the third step, you don't want to pause the video. You want to keep writing the points that you think you may forget. And at the same time, in your head, you have to multitask. In your head, you want to explain to yourself what you have heard. Okay? So you're listening, explaining to yourself in your own words what you have heard, and at the same time, writing things down that you will forget. Because honestly, if you follow steps 1 and 2, You're explaining to yourself what you have just heard. You will remember like 90% of the conversation. But there are things like names, places, directions, addresses, you won't remember those. That is why you have your pen and paper. Write things down that you might forget. But again, your mind and the thing that is written will compile the whole story again. And you would be able to look at it. It's like a complete script written down in your brain and on the paper that'll help you answer the questions way faster, way easier. All of this takes anything, like it could take 2 days if you work 10 hours a day, okay? If you have 1 hour a day, maybe give it 2 weeks, okay? This is a practice that you need to do for 10 to 15 hours in reading and listening, focused, no breaks, all right? Just like complete 1 hour reading. Don't look away, and 1 hour listening. Don't listen to anything else. And that will really help you improve your level, not only CELPIP, but also English in general. It's a great strategy, great way to improve your vocabulary, and just be a great English speaker overall. Okay, I hope this helps. Please subscribe, like, and share. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.